Hey, what's going on, dispatchers? It's your favorite freight dispatch trainer, Antoine West, back at you guys with another video. And what I want to talk about today is the truck driver and port strike. So right now, what we currently have going on is a port strike. That port strike that was supposed to take place October 1st actually did happen. So longshoremen along our nation's East Coast and down south are on strike right now. Over 45,000 port workers are currently on strike, and nothing's moving across many ports throughout our country. So I wanted to give you guys an update on that. But before we get into that, if you're interested in joining my free freight dispatcher community, make sure you click the link in the description of this video to join that community, where I'll be giving you more information on how to start your own home-based freight dispatching business. So on this port strike, as many know already, it happened last night. It started to take place last night, and this will have a major impact on our nation's economy, right? So it's going to have a major impact on our economy, on all sectors of our economy. As I said in the beginning of this video, that truck drivers are also on strike. So truck drivers may not know it yet, but they're on strike too, because how our supply chain system works. What longshoremen do, what they do at the ports, will affect truck drivers. So it's basically like the port workers have put truck drivers on strike, right? That hasn't came out yet, but how this is going to manifest, of course, that their strike is going to affect the truck drivers. And basically the truck drivers are going to be on strike. You know, it's been talked about a long time for now that truck drivers, need to go on strike. But guess what? They're about to be on strike, right? You might as well say they're on strike, but we didn't expect this to come from someone, from the people more ahead of them. They touch the freight first, right? If the port workers touch the freight first, right, and then they go on strike, so that makes truck drivers become on strike. So now we basically got a port worker strike, a truck driver strike, and you might as well say, as long as we keep it up, more people are going to, you can either say be on strike or they're going to be layoffs, right? So, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I always think things will get better. So how I believe with this situation with the port worker strike, it depends on how long the strike is for. It's going to vary. If it's for 1 or 2 weeks, that's going to be much different from if the strike is 1 or 2 months. It's going to have more ramifications if the strike is 1 or 2 months. So right now, of course, no one knows how long this strike is going to be, but this is how I see it playing out. So if we have this strike, let's say 2 weeks, right? By those 2 weeks, after a week, I believe we'll start seeing higher prices at the grocery stores. We'll start seeing higher prices everywhere after about a week, because it takes things time to trickle down. It takes supplies to trickle down to different logistics pipeline. When I'm training people to become freight dispatchers, I often talk about pipelines, but now we get to see everything works in a pipeline. So if I were you, I would stay updated on this situation as the results of certain actions trickle down the pipeline, right, and into the grocery stores. So within about 2 weeks, I would expect to see some higher prices at the grocery stores and limited supplies. You probably go into the grocery stores now, everything seems fine. Well, it's coming down the pipeline, right? That is a pipeline that's going to affect all of us. So at 2 weeks, higher prices at the grocery stores and more limited supplies. Let's say the strike ends after 2 weeks. We won't see a change in prices or the supplies immediately, because it happens in the pipeline. When they open up the pipeline, the goods have to trickle down, right? So, but the thing is, with the port strike, 1 day is like 7 days for us. If they're off work 7 days, it's going to be like 7 days. If they're off of work 1 day, it's like 7 days of makeup time, right? So if they are off 2 weeks, basically my best way to explain this is if those ports are shut down 2 weeks, right? You got ships offshore, and those ships are building up. So that's energy. That's energy building up that's being withheld from the marketplace, right? So I think if 2 weeks, it could have some positive. I think 2 weeks or a couple weeks could have a more positive impact on the economy, because as that value or that energy builds up offshore, as more ships come in with more goods and supplies and they can't offload, if that goes on for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden they can offload and let that energy into the marketplace, the port workers, hopefully they've gotten a raise by this time and they come back to work, but they're literally giving themselves overtime, right? Because when they come back to work, they're going to have a tremendous amount of overtime on their hands. And if they're smart, they will, put that in their overtime, of course, renegotiate their overtime, and they pretty much making money for themselves, right? Because they're going to give themselves overtime, and they're going to give the trucking industry overtime. So right now, what's going to happen is, as the ports are closed, the trucking industry is going to be withheld from value. The value is going to be withheld from the trucking industry for, let's say, if it's 2 weeks, and then that value is reopened up. That's when, since 1 day for them is like 7 days for us, if the trucking industry is withheld from that value for, let's say, like 2 weeks, the rates are going to be crazy once the ports open back up, because there's going to be so many loads coming into the country and not enough trucks, right? So as a truck driver, as an owner operator, or as a dispatcher, anybody in the trucking industry, I would position myself for that. If someone works in a warehouse, a factory, everyone's going to be impacted from the port closure. And then I believe once they open up, everyone is going to have there's going to be a lot of overtime pay around the country, right? Because all that value is going to be coming in the country at one time. It's like a lot of velocity, a lot of energy coming in at one time. So I would just prepare for that. That's if it's 1 or 2 weeks, right? If it's 1 or 2 months, more inflation. Just the longer it goes on, the more inflation that we're going to see, the higher prices we're going to see, the more limited supplies with everything, not just at the grocery stores, cars, fuel, manufacturing, construction workers, them, getting their supplies, everything they need for construction sites. Everything the prices are going to go up with limited supply. And basically, the longer this goes on, the more energy that's withheld. So the longer this goes on, I think once that energy is released into the economy, that's just going to be more energy, more flowing through the economy. So I believe no matter what happens on the front end, the rebound is going to be more. I definitely believe that to be true. I think it's science. It's something about when values withheld and then it's released, the back end of things. That's what that's why business owners prepare for like the back end of things, right? We think to the future and see how everything will come together, and then we get ready for that. So with this, it really just depends on how long the ports are closed down. But let's check out this news report, see what the news has to say.
Last night at midnight, 45,000 U.S. dock workers walked off the job, launching a strike that has shut down 36 ports along the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico, threatening to disrupt the nation's supply chain. Joining us right now to provide some data into just how much disruption we're facing is Alan Murphy. He's the CEO.
She says it's going to disrupt the nation's supply chain. What this whole incident with the ports is making me think about is that we consider ourselves different. You got the port workers, you got the people in the transportation industry, but as you see, it's one thing. It's just one pipeline. And especially if the interruption at the top of the pipeline happens, it's going to interrupt the entire pipeline. So we need to think of ourselves as just one group. We're just in logistics, and then logistics affects manufacturing and other industries too. So we can see how we all coexist within the economy.
CEO and founder of Sea Intelligence. And Alan, we've heard a lot of different numbers. By your estimates, how much does this cost the nation a day?
It's incredibly hard to estimate. Various estimates from different economists puts it somewhere between $3 and $5 billion per day. But it's both. What does it mean in delayed shipment? What does it mean to higher freight rates? It's all a very volatile game, but certainly it's going to be very, very costly, several $1 billion per day of strike. And that's the fundamental challenge here.
Like he said, higher freight rates, where I would position myself, because what I believe is all prices are going to increase, right? And then when they open up the ports, like he said, it's going to cost the price, it's going to cause the cost of freight rates to increase too. It would take more money to get loads to the grocery stores and manufacturers and everywhere loads need to go. So if I know all the prices are going to go up in the economy because freight rates are going to go up, because that cost is like they say, that cost is transferred to the customer, right? To us when we go in and buy things. So as a business owner, I'm going to think, well, let me get in the industry where I can make money off the freight rates, right? So that's what you want to position yourself for. If you're owner, operator, a dispatcher, a broker, anyone in the logistics industry, you position yourself for that rebound.
We don't know how long a potential strike or how long the strike will potentially last.
Well, let's walk through some of the potential timelines on this. What happens if this lasts the first week or two? What are the ramifications we can expect to see?
Well, it will certainly be a challenge especially for importers, especially if you have perishable goods moving in refrigerated containers. If they start to fail or they lose power. If you've got bananas, they're supposed to ripen over a certain time. If they spend another week, they start to spoil. Within a week, it's going to be costly and it's going to impact those importers that are waiting for the boxes. But it's a manageable crisis. If it lasts 2 weeks, then it starts getting to be a big challenge, because we'll start to see vessels missing that are now stuck in ports outside of the U.S. ports. They won't make their journey back to Asia and to the other origin regions, which will push up freight rates. So 2 to 3 weeks, it starts to get a really big problem, and we will see cost of shipping globally, not just to the U.S. East Coast, but globally start to push up.
Cost of shipping globally. This is going to cost the entire shipping worldwide to increase in price. So, that's what I always was taught. You get into an industry that is increasing in price. As your prices increase, as all the prices increase on us, it's a good job to get into a business that the price is increasing, so you'll make more money. And another thing I think people may not realize yet, this is going to affect the entire world, not just the United States. This is going to affect the shipping to the entire world, because shipments everywhere are going to become delayed and backed up. So I guess the East Coast port workers have a lot of control on not only the United States, but the entire world, the world economy. This is going to affect the world economy.
Maybe rerouted to Canada or to the West Coast?
That's not really much of an option. Some of these vessels will be calling a port in Canada or to different transshipment hubs in Caribbean. They'll try and offload as much as they can, but there's simply not enough room in the Canadian and Caribbean ports to handle all of this cargo. So there's really few options outside of actually just waiting outside a port, just like we saw during the pandemic, a line of vessels for as long as the strike lasts.
So I was thinking about, if you guys remember that during the pandemic, when the West Coast port shut down, ships, they were just waiting in the ocean, and it was just getting backed up as ships came in from overseas and couldn't offload.
If this lasts even longer, 2 to 4 months, then what?
Well, certainly then we're talking about a massive severe impact on the U.S. economy. By our estimates, almost certainly to push the U.S. into a recession this year if it lasts more than a month.
If it lasts more than a month, okay. You've said that the longshoremen have timing on their side because of what's happening in the Red Sea right now. You want to explain that?
Well, basically, before the Red Sea crisis, which is basically the inability to sail vessels, especially from Asia to Europe, via the Suez Canal. Now you have to go around Africa because of attacks from Houthis out of Yemen in the Red Sea. That basically means you need a whole lot more vessels to be able to sail the same distance, about 14% more vessels. And that means that whatever slack we had in the system back in December, which was around 15%, completely got removed because of the Red Sea crisis. Now, if the Red Sea crisis had not happened, then the strike now would have a much less severe impact because the shipping lines would have plenty of excess vessels to put in. Now they don't have any excess vessel. All the slack has been taken out of the system.
The idea that so much was shipped in early to try and make sure there were supplies that were here for retailers for the holiday season could lessen the impact, or at least not allow consumers to see the impact quite as quickly. How long before consumers do start to see it with either empty shelves or much higher prices that they are paying? And I ask because we've got an election here 5 weeks away.
Yeah. It all varies depending on what kind of commodities we're talking about. Perishable goods move much faster, obviously, to the end consumer. As a rough guide, we're talking about 2 months to max about 3 months is usually the flow from the cargo moves into port until we start seeing it out in shops. So the impact is likely going to be after the election season. The brunt of the impact are for an extended. But certainly, inventories will already be starting to draw down. So the whole supply chain is starting to loosen up. So we might already see prices go up in anticipation before we hit the election.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our.
Guys, like you said, short term, higher prices, more inflation. We already have inflation in the first place. Inflation was just starting to come down a little bit, and now it looks like this is going to bring even more inflation. So the best thing that we can do as business owners is make sure that we're in an industry that is increasing. That's how we can offset things. Also, the hurricane, the Hurricane Helene, the damage that it has done over North Carolina, the Carolinas, I got some people in Georgia. It's been heavy damage in that state too, in Tennessee. And those people need supplies, right? Those people need supplies, and the port strike is going to cause more of a problem over there. Let's check out a news article about the hurricane and the damages it has done to the Carolinas.
County Director in Communications and Public Engagement Lillian Govis. Thank you. I know it's a terrible day. It's been such a rough weekend for you guys. There are still so many unaccounted for. What's the expectation about all of those hundreds who are still haven't been located yet? I don't want to say missing, haven't been located yet.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues that we've been facing is the lack of connectivity. We don't have power. We don't have cell phone towers. And so we've had hundreds and thousands of people contacting us to try to make connection with their loved ones. And so once we can get that restored, I think we're going to see a pretty big collective sigh of relief from a number of people. However, as you noted, we do have 35 fatalities that we have confirmed here, and we expect that number is going to grow. And just last night, I got to go home for the first time, and it was after dark, and I got lost trying to find my own home, which I was lucky to still have one, because all of the landmarks where I live in Black Mountain are gone.
How do you begin to clean up from this? How do you begin to recover from this? What do you need?
Well, we need, first and foremost, I know a lot of people have been here to vacation and love it and think that it's beautiful, and it sure is, but please don't come here now. We don't have any infrastructure to support anyone coming here that isn't part of a coordinated response. We do have donations set up on our website, bunkumready.org. You can.
So, guys, let's keep the entire United States economy, the Carolinas, everyone who has been affected by Hurricane Helene. Let's keep everyone in our prayers. Let's hope that this port strike doesn't take place for too long. And then, more than anything, now that the port strike has already started, let's hope that at the end of the day, it's a blessing for the economy. And, maybe when the port strike is over, there's more value floating around in the economy. But if you guys wish to join my free freight dispatching community, make sure you click the link in the description of this video.